Chapter 11, Encountering the Girl of Fortune. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Send someone to keep an eye on Li Tian. If he leaves Yunwei, report to me immediately. Yes, master. Li Ningxuang said goodbye. Her fair and plump figure gradually became blurred and finally disappeared. In a rather exquisite courtyard on the outer island of Yunwei, a young man with a handsome face and a resolute look sat on the ground. It was Li Tian. At this moment, he was sweating profusely, and his clothes were also soaked with sweat. In front of him stood a large green cauldron, in which there were spiritual rhymes flowing, and wisps of spiritual light visible to the naked eye intertwined with each other. The whole courtyard was filled with a refreshing medicinal fragrance, and there was a glow of the sunset. Many tribesmen passing by cast astonished glances. This courtyard was given to Li Tian by the elders of the outer island, so the strange phenomenon and the medicinal fragrance were naturally created by him. Can he also make medicine? The strange phenomenon lasted for a whole day and night before it subsided. As the lid of the cauldron was opened with a bang, a round pill wrapped in spiritual light flew out, like a star falling from the sky, emitting brilliant light. Li Tian reached out to catch the pill. Although he was exhausted at the moment, he still showed a satisfied and happy smile on his face. It took several days and a lot of effort to finally make it. With this pill, Yulin's master will definitely recover, and Yulin will definitely have a good impression of him at that time, and her master will also be grateful to her, and maybe he will be betrothed Yulin to him directly when he is happy. Thinking of this, Li Tian's smile on his face was even more difficult to suppress. The next moment, golden light flashed between his eyebrows, and wonderful spiritual charm spread throughout his body, nourishing his exhausted and dry spiritual sea. The next day, Li Ningxuang found Li Guanhai and reported, "Master, Li Tian left the Yunwei Division and went north. Then we should set off as well. We can't let him get there first." Li Guanhai raised his lips, and under his jade-like smile, there was a hint of coldness. "Yes, Ningxuang will give the order right away." Li Ningxuang took his leave and quickly arranged the chariot and set up the Bingchan Palace. 6 dragon-fish divine horses pulled a chariot made of star sulfur jade, rumbling through the air, and the sky seemed to tremble. Under the chariot, a golden avenue stretched out. Wherever it passed, flowers fell like rain and the divine light was brilliant. 8 green flag guards with terrifying auras led the way in front, and a dozen followers followed closely behind. They all rode various kinds of divine beasts and protected the chariot in the middle. This scene can only be said to be worthy of the young master of the Yunwei Division. After passing through many teleportation arrays and crossing tens of millions of miles, they finally left the territory of the Yunwei Division. The upper world is vast and boundless, and no one knows where the end is. The upper world is just a large area of this world. Li Guanhai and his party went northward. Wherever they went, the cultivators in the sky and on the ground retreated and cast shocked and envious eyes, but more of them were fear. The Yunwei Division is vigorous and resolute, cruel and unscrupulous. Everyone in the upper world knows that no one is not afraid of them. The carriage made of star sulfur jade is a world of its own. This place is surrounded by mountains and water, and the scenery is picturesque, like a fairyland. Li Guanhai sat on a bluestone and flipped through ancient books. Li Ningxuang stood behind him and massaged his shoulders gently. "Master, there is news about the thing you asked me to keep an eye on." Li Guanhai raised his eyebrows, but did not interrupt her. Li Ningxuang continued, "The yin qi of the Mingshan absolute veins has shown signs of loosening recently. All the major forces have sent strong men to investigate, and many people have died." Li Guanhai flipped through ancient books and said, "The yin qi of the Mingshan is a very yin thing. Once a cultivator is exposed to it, the poison will enter the bone marrow and the cultivation will be completely destroyed. In severe cases, the poison will enter the heart veins and corrode and die. These people don't even have anything to protect themselves. How dare they approach rashly? What's the difference between this and sending themselves to death?" Li Ningxuang nodded in agreement, and her gentle eyes suddenly became cold and indifferent. "Master, you are right. They overestimate their own abilities and deserve to die." Li Guanhai said lightly, "Always pay attention to the movements of the Mingshan. If there is any news, notify me immediately." "Yes, master." Li Ningxuang nodded heavily. Li Guanhai suddenly put down the book, held her soft and tender hand, and asked gently, "Are you tired?" "No, as long as the master is satisfied, Ningxuang will be happy." Li Ningxuang's voice was very low, soft and charming. At this moment, Li Guanhai's expression suddenly changed, and he shouted, "Stop!" As soon as the words came out, the effect was immediate. The fast-running team suddenly stopped, and the golden road extending forward also stopped in the void. The curtain of the car opened, and Li Guanhai and Li Ningxuang walked out. Li Ningxuang asked, "Master, what's wrong?" Li Guanhai's eyes were shining with golden light, breaking through the clouds and mist, and landed on the state and county town below. Finally, he locked the target and smiled. "Ningxuang, accompany me." "Yes, master." The two turned into divine rainbows and swooped down, like two falling meteors. They concealed their figures and breaths and swept into a magnificent mansion called Lin Mansion in the city. Li Ningxuang stood quietly by the side, saying nothing, as cold as frost. The reason why Li Guanhai suddenly stopped and came here was because the system detected the existence of the Girl of Luck. The more the Girl of Luck, the better. Of course you can't miss it. At this moment, the atmosphere in the meeting hall of the Lin Mansion was a little dead. After a while, the tall middle-aged man who came to the front said, "Luoying, for the sake of the family, you should agree to it." His words were full of expectation and desire. In the center of the hall, stood a tall and slender figure. Her appearance was truly stunning. Her skin was as white as snow, and her body was as white as ice. White jade inlaid with pearls could not compare to her beauty, and the first bloom of a rose could not match her purity. Her beauty was stunning as her eyes turned, and she was a beauty rarely seen in life. Li Guanhai, who was hiding in the dark, was amazed again and again. Are all the women of destiny born so beautiful? Let alone this skin alone, there are few people in the world who can match it. This also destined her to encounter many hardships in this life. I feel pity for her, let alone this old slave. At this time, the woman named Luoying spoke, and every word was like a pearl, like the sound of nature. "Uncle, you don't need to persuade me. I will never marry Dongcheng." The man she called uncle was named Lin Tai, the current head of the Lin family. He sighed and persuaded, "Luoying, you have to consider the family. The ancestor just passed away, and our Lin family lost its pillar. If we don't rely on the Dong family, then the other families will tear us apart like wolves, and the Lin family will even be destroyed. Can you really bear it?" As soon as these words came out, many elders nodded in agreement. Without waiting for Lin Luoying to answer, Lin Tai continued, "And you have an engagement, it's reasonable." "Engagement?" Lin Luoying's jade face showed a sarcastic sneer. "You made this engagement without authorization. Did you ask for my opinion?" Chapter 12, A Stunning Sight, Unforgettable Forever. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lin Tai frowned, changing his previous gentle attitude, and said in a cold voice, "Parents' orders, matchmaker's words. Your parents are dead, and as your uncle, I certainly have the right to decide your lifelong affairs." The elders next to him echoed. "The family has raised you for so many years, and now you can't make a little sacrifice. You are too selfish." "Yes, Luoying, do you really want the Lin family to go to extinction? Revitalizing the family is the obligation of every member of the family. Since you are a lady, you should shoulder your responsibilities. If you don't agree, the entire Lin family will be destroyed. Can you bear this responsibility?" The Lin family members spoke one after another, and naturally stood on the moral high ground. Lin Luoying listened to the righteous words of her uncles, and the undisguised accusations, and her heart was very sad. Before this, she had a strong sense of dependence and belonging to her family, but now, she only felt disappointed, nothing else. Lin Luoying's heart was getting colder, and there was no expression on her jade face, only endless indifference. "Since this is the case, I, Lin Luoying, will leave the Lin family from now on. From now on, life and death, honor and disgrace, will have nothing to do with the Lin family." She said this lightly. The hall suddenly became quiet, and everyone looked at this beautiful woman with a cold face, as if they were shocked. The next moment, Lin Tai suddenly stood up, slapped the table in front of him into powder, and shouted angrily. "Lin Luoying, don't refuse to drink the toast. Do you think you can leave the Lin family with just a few words? I tell you, you have the blood of my Lin family in your body, and you will never get rid of it in your life. You have to marry today, whether you want to or not. Lin Luoying looked at the uncle who was speaking harshly and had a ferocious face, and a self-deprecating arc appeared at the corner of her mouth. How kind and caring the uncle was to her in the past. I didn't expect that he would turn against me one day, and that's all. This is his true face. Narrow-minded, selfish. Lin Luoying was heartbroken and extremely disappointed. She turned around and left without saying a word. Lin Tai was furious and was about to stop him. At this moment, a strong laugh came into the meeting hall. Ha 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 ha, it's ridiculous that the head of the Lin family can't even convince a little girl. Then, two people stepped into the meeting hall. It was a middle-aged man and a young man. Seeing the people coming, Lin Tai immediately greeted them, clasped his fists and saluted, with a very respectful and polite attitude. Elder Dong and Mr. Dong are here at my house. I'm sorry that I couldn't greet them. You're polite. I'm really flattered by what the head of the Lin family said. The middle-aged man said so, but there was no humility in his expression. It was obvious that he was very complacent and didn't take Lin Tai seriously at all. The young man named Dong beside him never took his eyes off Lin Luoying from beginning to end. A pair of slender and wretched rat eyes kept moving over her tall and graceful body, and the lustful light in his eyes almost became real. Elder Dong smiled and said, Master Lin, I came here today to discuss the wedding date with you. It seems that Master Lin has encountered trouble. Lin Tai hurriedly said, Don't worry, Elder Dong, and please be at ease, Mr. Dong, I will definitely solve it properly. Lin Luoying suddenly said, I will not marry, you should give up this idea. Lin Tai had an ugly expression and a resentful look in his eyes, wishing he could get out directly. Elder Dong glanced at her and said to Lin Tai, Master Lin, since you can't solve it, let me help you, how about it? Elder Dong, please. Lin Tai agreed very readily without any hesitation. He had long wanted to teach this niece who was not easy to deal with. The next moment, Elder Dong took action. Xian Jiang burst out with the momentum of the peak, and pushed Lin Luoying, whose body was slender and thin, with one palm. Lin Luoying raised her palm to resist. After only a moment of stalemate, the spiritual power she had condensed was completely defeated. The powerful palm power fell, and Lin Luoying vomited blood, which stained her clothes. The white clothes were red blood, bright and scary. She flew backwards, and her jade finger secretly drew a rune. Elder Dong sneered, and just as he was about to pursue the victory, he suddenly saw a beam of cold light coming silently and cutting directly into his face. He was shocked and immediately turned his head to avoid it, but he was still half a step too late. A 3-inch long bloody wound was cut on his face, and blood was dripping. Lin Tai's heart was tightened, and he kept cursing Lin Luoying in his heart. This bitch dared to hurt Elder Dong. What if he took his anger out on the Lin family? What should I do? Elder Dong was extremely humiliated. He didn't expect to be injured by a junior and injured. If this matter gets out, how can he still stand? Very good, Lin Luoying, you have successfully angered me. Since you are stubborn, I have no choice but to break your limbs and destroy your cultivation. Let's see if you can still resist. As soon as the voice fell, Elder Dong suddenly disappeared from the spot and appeared in front of Lin Luoying. Lin Luoying knew that she was not this man's opponent. She knew what would happen to her after her limbs were destroyed. She didn't want to live in such humiliation. Since she couldn't decide how to live, she decided how to die. Anyway, she had nothing to linger in this world. Thinking of this, she didn't hesitate at all and slapped her brow directly, seeing a pretty and peerless beauty about to die. At the critical moment, an aurora came and illuminated the heaven and earth. Lin Luoying's jade palm stopped in midair, and she felt her wrist being held by someone. Opening his eyes, he didn't know when there was a silhouette beside him. His eyebrows were astonishing, and his eyes were cold, a shocking moment that will never be forgotten. He pushed out a palm lightly. The gentle breeze blows past my ears, and 3,000 green threads of cherry blossoms are flying in the forest. Elder Dong, who was so powerful one moment, flew backwards in the next moment, spurting blood in the air, and was seriously injured in an instant. The entire hall was deathly silent, except for the sound of Elder Dong coughing up blood intermittently. After a while, Lin Tai tremblingly raised his hands and saluted. Dare you ask me who your majesty is? Li Guanhai didn't look at him at all, but looked back at Lin Luoying who was watching him, with a breathtaking smile on his face. You want to die? He spoke, and the question was a little direct, but also a little strange. I just don't want to live in humiliation. Lin Luoying replied like this. I'll give you a chance to live with dignity and live for yourself, are you willing? Li Guanhai asked with a smile. Lin Luoying didn't even think about it and immediately replied, yes. Okay, Ningxuang. As Li Guanhai's voice sounded, the space behind him fluctuated, and a stunningly beautiful woman with a frosty figure, a plump and graceful figure, and an appearance as good as Lin Luoying's appeared. Owner. Lead people to destroy the Dong family. Yes. The space fluctuated again, and Li Ningxuang had disappeared. Everyone in the hall was silent, looking at the young man in Xuanhuan. There was no longer curiosity in their eyes, only fear. With just a few words, he can destroy a big family. Who is he? Li Guanhai turned his gaze and landed on the young master of the Dong family, whose face was pale with fear. He smiled and said, as for these two people, you can deal with it yourself. Chapter 13, Sour Ice Beauty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lin Luoying looked at Elder Dong and Young Master Dong who were seriously injured and dying, with a cold light in her eyes. When Master Dong saw that she had murderous intentions, he knew that he was no match for her, so he begged for mercy in a desperate manner, regardless of his dignity. Luoying, don't kill me, because, for the sake of our acquaintance, please spare me. I swear, I will never appear in front of you again, I swear. In the face of death, people will indeed reveal their true colors. Lin Luoying looked at him expressionlessly, her eyes filled with indifference, showing no emotion at all. A flash of light suddenly appeared in her jade palm, and several sword rays cleared the blue sky, as powerful as a frightening dragon, and they slashed out in separate directions. Young Master Dong's hair stood on end, his pupils shrank suddenly, and the spiritual power in his body surged out without reservation, protecting his whole body. But his spiritual shield disintegrated the moment it came into contact with the sword light and collapsed at the first touch. Boo-hoo-hoo. No. Accompanied by Master Dong's miserable howl, his body was twisted into blood mist in the storm of sword energy, and both body and soul were destroyed. When Elder Dong on the side saw this scene, he didn't know whether he was angry or scared, and he vomited blood several times. Lin Luoying, you are so brave. My young master is a disciple of Tianhu Palace. If you kill him, Tianhu Palace and the Dong family will not let you go. At this moment, a divine rainbow descended from the sky, swept into the hall, and landed behind Li Guanhai. The divine light dissipated, revealing Li Ningxuang's enchanting body. Master, the Dong family has been executed. As soon as this statement came out, the whole audience was shocked. Lin Tai and other members of the Lin family looked at each other, feeling frightened. Elder Dong was in disbelief. He looked like a madman and shouted regardless of his injuries, impossible, this is absolutely impossible. Although the Dong family is not a famous sect, there are many masters in the family. How could it be destroyed in a cup of tea? Who is this mysterious young man? The next moment, Lin Luoying pointed slightly, and a cold light passed by, piercing the center of Elder Dong's eyebrows. The crazy expression on Elder Dong's face froze, a few drops of blood flowed from his eyebrows, and he fell down, lifeless. There was deathly silence in the hall, and you could hear a pin drop. This is a recommendation order. If you follow this order, you can enter Daoxian Tiangong to practice. Li Guanhai said with a smile, and handed over a jade plaque with flowing spiritual light. Lin Luoying's heart skipped a beat. Daoxian Tiangong is the top holy land for spiritual practice in the upper world today. No matter how many geniuses squeeze their heads, they are not qualified to join. Now I actually got the opportunity to join Daoxian Tiangong so easily. Happiness came so suddenly, like a dream. The Lin family members all looked with eager eyes, filled with envy and jealousy in their hearts. Lin Luoying calmed down, took the jade token, glanced at Li Ningxuang with her wonderful eyes, hesitated, and asked softly, "Can I follow the young master?" Hearing this, Li Ningxuang also looked up at her but said nothing. Believe me, going to Daoxian Tiangong will be more beneficial to you than following me. Li Guanhai said this, then turned and left. Lin Luoying was anxious and asked quickly, "Sir, I don't know your name yet." As soon as they finished speaking, Li Guanhai and Li Ningxuang turned into two divine rainbows and rushed into the sky. A clear and clear voice came down like a bell, "If you are destined, you will know." Lin Luoying chased out of the hall, staring blankly at the vast blue sky, and did not move for a long time. After a long time, Lin Tai walked over shamelessly and was about to speak. Lin Luoying took the lead and said, "The Lin family and I have severed all ties from now on and have nothing to do with each other anymore." After saying that, he jumped away directly. Lin Tai didn't stop him and didn't dare to stop him. He felt regretful in his heart and couldn't help but smile bitterly. His whole figure seemed to have aged dozens of years in an instant. The Dong family has been destroyed, and the Lin family has no backing. From now on, it will decline step by step. Li Guanhai and Li Ningxuang returned to the chariot and continued heading north. "Sir, why did you help that woman?" Although Li Ningxuang knew that she shouldn't talk too much, she couldn't help being curious and asked. According to the cold personality of the master, he would never meddle in such nosy matters, but today he was unusually uncharacteristic. "What is so special about that woman?" Li Ningxuang did not think that the master helped the other party because of his beauty. There are a lot of beautiful women around the master, and others don't say it, but his appearance is not inferior to that woman in the slightest, and in terms of figure, it can be said that he completely beats her. The master is not the kind of superficial man who is moved by beauty. He must have other motives for doing this. Jealous? Li Guanhai took a sip of tea, tasted it briefly, and asked with a smile. "No." Li Ningxuang pursed her red lips and shook her head in denial. Li Guanhai smiled and said, "Lin Luoying is extremely beautiful, pure and elegant. She is a rare beauty who can conquer the country. I will help her. Of course I want to kiss her." Hearing this, Li Ningxuang stared at him with a faint look. "Okay, just kidding. The reason why I helped her is because she is extremely talented. If you train her well, she can be used by me in the future. That's all." Li Guanhai said this. Hearing this, Li Ningxuang was stunned, and her beautiful eyes widened. Is the master explaining to himself? Li Ningxuang's head was buzzing. She was really flattered. What qualifications do you have to ask the master to explain? Why does the master need to explain to himself? Does he care about his own feelings? Thinking of this, Li Ningxuang's ears were hot and her heart was beating, and her eyes were charming. Hundreds of thousands of miles away, covered by white snow, the sky and the earth were vast. Jade Mountain was winding and curved like a white wilderness, making the sky and the snowy field blend into one. The white mist was connected to Jade Mountain, which seemed a little lonely and desolate, and on that Jade Mountain, in the white mist, stood dozens of divine palaces and fairy palaces. This place was the sphere of influence of Bingchan Palace. In the main peak temple, a woman with a white skirt falling to the ground and a graceful figure sat cross-legged on a cushion. She was about 30 years old, with white and smooth skin, and a layer of soft and bright honey light. Her beauty and demeanor were not inferior to that of a girl, and her beauty was breathtaking. At this moment, her eyes were closed, her eyebrows were slightly frowned, and the spiritual energy around her was surging and rioting, gradually out of her control. The next moment, the spiritual power poured back and rushed straight to the central mansion. The woman's face turned pale and she spat out a mouthful of blood, staining her red and white dress, which was bright and dazzling. The palace door was pushed open, and a girl in colorful feathered clothes ran in quickly and helped the woman up. "Master, are you okay?" This girl was the saint of Bingchan Palace, Lu Yulin, and the woman she supported in her arms was the current palace master of Bingchan Palace and her master, Feng Yusheng. People also called her Fairy Linghan. "It's okay." Feng Yusheng smiled and shook his head, whispering, "It seems that the master can't make it through this." Lu Yulin's eyes were red and his voice was choked. "No, master will be fine, please don't ignore your disciple. Yulin, don't be sad, fate is determined by heaven, and it cannot be changed by human power." Feng Yusheng stretched out his soft and delicate jade hand, stroked her head, and comforted her softly. "Yulin, go and call all the elders and disciples." She knew she would not live long, and before she died, she had to arrange her funeral properly so that she could leave with peace of mind. "Palace Master, a distinguished guest has arrived." Suddenly, a female disciple hurried into the hall, looking flustered and out of breath. Feng Yusheng asked, "What distinguished guest?" The female disciple swallowed her saliva and spoke haltingly. It's the Young Master Guanhai of the Yunwei Division." Chapter 14, The Young Master of Guanhai arrives. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Regardless of his injuries, Feng Yusheng stood up suddenly, stared at the female disciple with his beautiful eyes, and asked again in disbelief, "Who do you think you are?" "Young Master Guanhai of the Yunwei Division." The female disciple replied. Feng Yusheng's expression changed drastically. After being stunned for a long time, he hurriedly ordered, "Quickly, gather all the elders and disciples and follow me to greet young Master Guanhai." "Yes." The female disciple agreed and exited the hall. Lu Yulin said worriedly, "Master, you are not feeling well. It is better not to work too hard. Let the disciple go on behalf of the master." Feng Yusheng shook his head. "No, young Master Guanhai is coming. As the master of Bingchan Palace, it would be a great rudeness for me not to go and greet him personally." Lu Yulin knew that his master had made up his mind, so he sighed and said no more. She supported Feng Yusheng, turned into a divine rainbow, and swept out of the temple. The entire Bingchan Palace became agitated with the news of Li Guanhai's arrival, and all the elders and disciples were rushing to the central square. Divine rainbow streaked across the sky, resembling a meteor shower. In less than half a cup of tea, the central square was filled with people, and Feng Yusheng's master and apprentice also arrived. The sky in the south rumbled, and everyone followed the sound. A bright golden avenue extended and landed on the central square. A moment later, a chariot surrounded by dozens of people rolled across the sky and came speeding over, including Feng Yusheng. All the elders and disciples of Bingchan Palace were in awe, and their breathing became a little short. Yunwei is the top force standing in the upper world, and no one dares to go against it. The small Bingchan Palace was as light as dust in front of Yunwei. They were afraid that if they were not careful and angered young Master Guanhai, Bingchan Palace would be destroyed. In just a few breaths, the carriage that was far away in the horizon just now is now very close. The carriage landed, and the green flag guards and a dozen followers stood on both sides, exuding a terrifying aura. The car curtain opened and a young man came out. As soon as he appeared, the necklace danced lightly, the subtle fragrance floated, and everything seemed to be still, and turned into an ink painting. At this moment, everything was silent, the surrounding scenery became blurred, and only the picturesque people walked out of the painting. This kind of grace makes the world's geniuses eclipse and become nothing more than dung. The elders and disciples of Bingchan Palace were all dumbfounded, wondering how there could be such a flawless, handsome man in the world. He was so perfect that it was simply unreal. Li Guanhai, secretary of Yunwei, has met the palace master. Li Guanhai bowed slightly, thoughtfully and sincerely. Feng Yusheng was taken aback, a trace of panic flashed across his bright and beautiful face, and he hurriedly returned the courtesy. "Young Master Guanhai, you are so polite. It is an honor for me, Bingchan Palace, to have you here." Li Guanhai showed a faint smile, and he was so handsome that no one dared to look directly at him. The disciples and elders of Bingchan Palace were all sizing up the legendary young master Yunwei. It is said that he has a cold temperament, is ruthless and will do whatever it takes to achieve his goals. He is a very scary person, but when I saw him today, he was thorough in all aspects of etiquette and not at all arrogant. He seems to have the image of a gentle and elegant gentleman, which is completely different from the cold-blooded cruelty rumored. Thinking of this, the tense bodies of the elders and disciples of Bingchan Palace relaxed and heaved a sigh of relief. Lu Yulin was also sizing up the man in black clothes in front of him, thinking that the young master of Yunwei Division seemed to be very different from what Li Tian said. He seemed quite approachable. Could it be that he said that because he was jealous of young Master Guanhai and was prejudiced against him? "Young Master Guanhai, please come this way." Feng Yusheng smiled faintly, and his face was astonishing as his eyes fluttered. "Palace Master, please." Li Guanhai followed her, and when he passed by Lu Yulin, he nodded towards her and smiled warmly. Lu Yulin's heartbeat was pounding, and Shefei's cheeks felt like he was in the clouds, soaring through the mist. Was he smiling to himself just now? Lu Yulin froze in place for a long time, until a junior sister patted her on the shoulder, and she suddenly woke up. Senior sister, why are you dazed? The Palace Master and Young Master Guanhai have already gone to the main peak temple. Ah. Oh, I understand. Thank you, Xiao Che. I'll be there right away. Lu Yulin calmed down and hurried to the main peak temple. The female disciple named Xiao Che was about to leave when suddenly her body trembled and her eyes became dull, then became clear again. Behind her stood a vague figure. It was Li Ningshuang, thousands of miles away from Bingchan Palace. A young man with a delicate appearance and firm eyes came out of the sky with a look of excitement and expectation. It was Li Tian. He hurriedly, but it was still a step too late, and he never dreamed that his great enemy Li Guanhai would arrive at Bingchan Palace before him. Soon, he landed at the mountain gate of Bingchan Palace. When the two male disciples saw a stranger intruding, they immediately became vigilant. With two clanging sounds, they unsheathed their swords. Stop, Bingchan Palace Holy Land, outsiders are not allowed to enter without permission. Li Tian frowned slightly, then relaxed, and said calmly, let me inform you that the saint wants to see his friend Li Tian. It's ridiculous. How could Her Majesty the Saint have such a noble status and have such an unbearable friend like you? Stop talking nonsense here and get out of here. Li Tian narrowed his eyes, and the murderous intent in his pupils flashed away, but he restrained himself and his voice remained calm. If this is nonsense, I will tell you the saint. Hearing this, the two disciples guarding the mountain were about to reprimand when a clear female voice came first. There are distinguished guests coming to Bingchan Palace. No outsiders are allowed to enter. You can go. A good-looking girl in white stood on the steps, looking down at Li Tian. When the two disciples guarding the mountain saw the girl, they quickly sheathed their swords and saluted. I have met senior sister Xiao Che. Li Tian suddenly had an ominous premonition and asked hurriedly, Noble sir? Where is your saint? Xiao Che replied calmly, we are entertaining that distinguished guest. Entertain? Li Tian caught this word very keenly, felt a little uncomfortable in his heart, and asked, who is the distinguished guest? Young Master of the Yunwei Division, Li Guanhai. Xiao Che uttered a few words lightly, but Li Tian's expression suddenly changed, as if he had seen a ghost, and he exclaimed, Li Guanhai? Why is he here? Why did he come to Bingchan Palace? Is Yulin by Li Guanhai's side now? What are they doing? She clearly knew that there was a blood feud between herself and Li Guanhai, so why did she do this? Several questions lingered in Li Tian's mind, making him almost crazy and feeling betrayed, but after he got angry, he quickly calmed down and his mind became much clearer. No, Yulin will not betray me. She was ordered to entertain Li Guanhai. She must be forced to have no choice but to speak out. Yes, that must be the case. Li Tian comforted himself like this, and finally felt much better. No, the longer Yulin stays with Li Guanhai, the more dangerous she will be. He must find a way to help her escape from the clutches of the devil. Thinking of this, Li Tian lowered his posture and bowed deeply to Xiao Che who was standing on the stone steps. Fairy, I am an old acquaintance of your Highness the Saint. I came here today because I have something important to ask her. Can you allow me to come in? I will abide by the etiquette and laws and will never go overboard in the slightest. Xiao Che looked confused, as if hesitating. Finally, she sighed softly, nodded and said, Okay, come with me. Thank you Fairy. Chapter 15, Xuanhuang Mother Qi, the Palace Master's Gratitude. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Guanhai followed Feng Yuxing to the main peak temple. Young Master Guanhai, please take a seat. Feng Yuxing spoke, his voice was exciting and filled with joy. Li Guanhai shook his head and smiled, this junior is a guest from afar, how can I overshadow the guest and usurp the master? If the palace master is like this, isn't he being trapped in an unjust situation? This. Feng Yu was speechless, and I didn't know what to do for a while. Li Guanhai said, Palace master, don't worry too much, please take a seat. Feng Yuxing bowed and saluted. Ying rubbed her body and walked slowly to the main seat to sit down. Li Guanhai also sat down at the seat closest to her, and his every move was elegant. Young Master Guanhai, why are you free to come to my Bingchan Palace today? Feng Yuxing asked with a smile, really curious. why did the majestic young master Yunwei, the top genius in the upper world that attracted everyone's attention, suddenly come to this small Bingchan palace of his? Li Guanhai smiled and said, "This junior has a follower who is a disciple of Bingchan Palace. I heard from her that the palace owner is suffering from a strange disease and is seriously ill. I saw that she was in a state of disbelief all day long and couldn't bear it, so I came here specially. It turns out that this is the case, but it makes young Master Guanhai worried." Feng Yusheng smiled brightly. Although he still had doubts in his heart, he did not ask any further questions. "Palace Master, I wonder if Guanhai can check his pulse," Li Guanhai asked. Feng Yusheng bit his lower lip lightly, then nodded his head lightly. "Then it's young Master Lao Guanhai." She pushed aside her plain gauze gown, which was as light as smoke, revealing a white, greasy wrist. Li Guanhai approached her, and a faint fragrance penetrated the tip of his nose, making his mind sway. This Feng Yusheng is also an out-and-out beauty. Different from those young girls, she exudes a gentle and mature temperament, which is even more fascinating. Li Guanhai calmed down, stretched out 2 fingers of his right hand, and gently placed them on her cold, snow-white wrist. The moment their skin touched each other, Li Guanhai clearly felt her body tense up for a moment, and she also trembled slightly, but she soon returned to normal. Feng Yusheng is pure and pure. In the hundreds of years since she was born, she has never had skin-to-skin contact with a man. Today is the first time, so it is inevitable that she will feel a little uncomfortable. Li Guanhai pretended to check his pulse for a while, then casually withdrew. "The palace master has been suffering from a strange disease for a long time. If Guanhai guessed correctly, this is not an acquired condition, but a congenital defect, right?" Feng Yusheng did not hide anything, nodded and said, "What young Master Guanhai said is absolutely true. Yusheng's master once said that I was born with imperfections and my cultivation path is extremely bumpy. Even if I achieve a small amount of success, I will not live for a few hundred years." Hearing this, Lu Yulin, who was standing by, had red eyes again. When she thought that her master was about to leave her, she felt the urge to cry loudly. For hundreds of years, Yusheng has been searching for a solution, but in vain. Yusheng understands the kindness of young Master Guanhai, but his destiny is determined by God, so there is no need to force it. Feng Yusheng said this. She did not think that the young man in front of her would be able to save her, even if he was the young master of Yunwei Division. Li Guanhai heard her thoughts from her words, smiled slightly, and handed over a clean bottle. Feng Yusheng took the purification bottle and said, "This is it. What's in the pure bottle is the black and yellow mother's energy." "What?" As soon as these words came out, everyone in the hall was shocked. All the elders stood up suddenly, widened their eyes, and looked at the pure bottle that formed its own space in disbelief. What's inside is actually Xuanhuang mother qi. How is this possible? Feng Yusheng's red lips were slightly opened in shock, and he couldn't calm down for a long time. The black and yellow mother energy is the essence of the earth, and it is also the creative force that nurtures all things in the chaotic universe. It can make up for all innate shortcomings, and even reverse the birth and death of all things and recreate the universe. One punch of Xuanhuang mother qi is enough to create hundreds of millions of creatures in a world. From this we can see how precious this Xuanhuang mother qi is. It can be said to be the supreme treasure of creation. If this news spreads, I am afraid that the entire upper world will be shaken by it, and even start a bloody storm. Guan, young Master Guanhai, this Xuanhuang mother qi is so precious, Yusheng deserves it. Feng Yusheng was speechless. This was the first time in hundreds of years that she had lost her composure. Li Guanhai smiled heartily and said, "What is the so-called treasure if it is useless, if it is kept hidden all the time? This Xuanhuang mother's energy is of no use to me, but it can save the palace master. How can Guanhai be stingy?" Hearing this, Feng Yusheng and all the elders were deeply moved and fell to the ground in admiration. Such a treasure was given to a person who had nothing to do with it in an understatement. This kind of heart and magnanimity would be beyond the reach of even the most kind-hearted person in the world. Feng Yusheng stood up, moved her lotus steps lightly, and stood pretty in front of Li Guanhai. She held her skirt with her bare hands and bowed down. Young Master's kindness is so great that Yusheng will never forget this kindness even if he is reincarnated for thousands of tribulations. Lu Yulin and all the elders also bowed their heads, extremely devout and grateful. This kindness is truly higher than the mountains and deeper than the sea, and it will be difficult to repay it in eternity. Li Guanhai first stretched out his hand to help Feng Yusheng up, then waved his sleeves, blowing out a stream of spiritual power as light as the breeze, and helped everyone present except Lu Yulin. "You're all welcome." Li Guanhai smiled and then seemed to notice Lu Yulin, who was still kneeling on the ground. He walked over personally, bent down and took her soft and delicate hands. Lu Yulin only felt a clear and light fragrance, surrounding her body, the hall, and the whole world. Her heart was in turmoil, 2 red clouds floated on her beautiful face, her face was hot, and her heartbeat accelerated. When she was in a trance, her hands were suddenly empty, the fragrance dissipated, and Li Guanhai had already sat back in his seat. Lu Yulin bit her lower lip, and pinched the hem of her skirt with her bare hands, feeling a little reluctant. Feng Yusheng's smile was like a flower blooming, and he immediately ordered people to prepare a banquet to entertain Li Guanhai. On the other side, in a pavilion far away from the main peak temple, Li Tian was already a little impatient. The longer the time dragged on, the stronger the bad feeling in his heart became, but he had no way. This was the territory of Bingchan Palace. If he dared to mess around, he would definitely be in trouble. At this moment, suddenly a golden light rushed into the sky from the north, and a series of clear and pleasant bells rang out. Countless disciples cheered, and the usually deserted Bingchan Palace suddenly became lively. "What's going on?" Li Tian was suspicious and wanted to find someone to ask. Just at this moment, Xiao Che walked into the attic. Li Tian hurriedly asked, "Fairy, what happened? Why are you so happy?" Xiao Che also smiled and replied, "The palace master's illness has a cure, and the inner and outer gates are holding a banquet to celebrate." "What?" Li Tian was stunned, and his mind was still a little confused. He suddenly thought of Li Guanhai, and his little heart sank to the bottom of the valley. "Fairy, may I ask where the palace master's healing method came from?" Xiao Che replied lightly, "Of course it was given by the young Master Guanhai." Sure enough. Even though Li Tian had expected it, he was still very angry. He clenched his fists so tightly that his joints turned white and his gums trembled. "Li Guanhai, it's you again. Why are you always one step ahead of me?" Chapter 16, Her Highness the Saint is sleeping with Young Master Guanhai. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After he calmed down, he hurriedly asked, "Fairy, where is Her Highness the Saint? I want to see her." "The Saint is naturally with Master Guanhai. She won't see you. Besides, how can she waste time with you?" Xiao Che glanced at him, then sighed, and said helplessly, "Alas, I'll go and inform you. You stay here honestly and don't walk around." "Thank you." Li Tian clenched his teeth and clenched his fists. Yulin, on the main peak of Bingchan Palace, the clouds rolled with rainbows and thousands of auspicious auras sprayed purple mist. Inside and outside the temple, on all the major peaks, there were banquets and cheers. It was a prosperous and lively scene. Before today, Bingchan Palace was still lifeless, and all the elders and disciples were depressed and worried. Because the palace master was seriously ill and difficult to cure, he would not live long. Once the palace master dies, Bingchan Palace will be leaderless and its strength will be greatly reduced. Those forces that are at odds with Bingchan Palace will definitely take the opportunity to attack. By then, how much power will Bingchan Palace have to resist them? They can only become lambs and be slaughtered. But now, the palace master has survived and can continue to protect Bingchan Palace. Those elders and disciples who were originally as disappointed as death are naturally overjoyed. The depressed mood that has been suppressed for a long time can finally be released. In the temple, Master Guanhai, Yusheng toasts you a cup. At the first seat, Feng Yusheng held a jade cup in her white hand and gestured to Li Guanhai from a distance. Then she raised her head slightly, opened her mouth slightly, and drank the nectar in the cup. When she raised her head, she revealed a slender and white neck, which was round and smooth without a wrinkle. Maybe she drank too much. The smell of alcohol steamed her cheeks, making her look even more charming. Li Guanhai smiled slightly and returned a glass. The elders looked at each other, and they all gathered their courage to come forward to toast him. "Master Guanhai, I toast you a glass to thank you for your kindness." "Master Guanhai, I also toast you a glass." Your grace and generosity are truly unprecedented and rare in the world. Master Guanhai, I toast you too. The banquet was full of toasts, drums and music, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. Li Guanhai glanced at Lu Yulin, who was sitting in the corner and seemed to be wandering, and raised his glass and smiled. Miss Yulin, I am glad to meet you. Let's drink a glass together. Lu Yulin suddenly woke up and was a little at a loss. Obviously, she didn't expect Li Guanhai to invite her. She was flattered and hurriedly filled the empty jade cup with wine. It is Yulin's honor to be able to meet young Master Guanhai. That. I'll drink first. Li Guanhai smiled slightly and poured the wine into his mouth. The elders looked at each other when they saw this scene and understood each other's meaning. They all smiled ambiguously at the same time, and their smiles were very cunning, with wrinkles all over their faces, like a few old chrysanthemums. Feng Yuxing was also thoughtful, with her head supported by her arms. Her posture was lazy, and her jade face was full of smiles. At this moment, she was lying on the throne surrounded by flowers. Her colorful clothes slipped slightly, revealing her snow-white calves folded under her skirt. The feet were slender and the ankles were round, which made people feel excited. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 kinds of dishes, the celebration did not end until late at night. Feng Yuxing arranged Li Guanhai to rest in the temple on the main peak. After letting everyone leave, she called her disciple. Yulin, what do you think of young Master Guanhai? Hearing this, Lu Yulin couldn't help but think of the young man who looked like a god in her mind. Recalling the previous physical contact, she couldn't help blushing and her heartbeat accelerated. Young Master Guanhai is as gentle as jade, magnanimous, and graceful. He is a very good person. Feng Yuxing added, young Master Guanhai came here this time, only with his entourage and guards, and no personal maid. She only said half of the words, but the meaning was already very clear. Lu Yulin's eyes widened, her mouth slightly opened, and she couldn't speak clearly. Master, do you want me to serve Master Guanhai? Feng Yuxing nodded, and then asked, are you willing? Lu Yulin's little hands tightly pinched the hem of her skirt, lowered her eyes and eyebrows, and was silent for a long time before she said in a mosquito-like voice, I'm afraid that Master Guanhai will dislike me and don't want me to serve. Silly girl, you are so beautiful, Master Guanhai will definitely like you. Feng Yuxing rubbed her head, his eyes full of doting. Then. Master, I'll go. Well, go. Lu Yulin turned and left, still lowering her head, shy and timid. Feng Yuxing looked at the back of his disciple and sighed softly. She stretched out her white jade-like hands and pulled the black hair that fell on her jade cheeks behind her ears. Under the moonlight, her snow-white skin, as tender as condensed fat, was covered with a layer of soft and bright honey light, pure and beautiful and childish. Lu Yulin came all the way to the side hall where Li Guanhai lived. Her heart was beating like a drum and her breathing was extremely rapid. It took a long time to finally calm down a little. She took a deep breath, and her white hands as white as snow gently pushed open the palace door and walked in. On the other side, on the attic, Li Tian became more and more anxious. The banquet was over and it was late at night. Why didn't Yulin come to see him? Did Xiao Che not tell Yulin that he was coming to see her, and she didn't know he was coming? What is she doing now? Is she still with Li Guanhai? But the banquet is obviously over. Just when Li Tian was full of random thoughts and was about to go out to find Lu Yulin, footsteps sounded behind him. Li Tian was overjoyed. When he turned around, he saw that the person coming was not Lu Yulin, but Xiao Che. He stretched his neck to look behind the girl, and no one followed her. Where is Yulin? Li Tian immediately went up to her and asked anxiously, Fairy Xiao Che, where is Yulin, where is she? Why doesn't she come to see me? Her Highness the Saint asked me to tell you to leave on your own. What does this mean? Li Tian's heart was lifted. Xiao Che frowned and said, isn't it obvious enough? Her Highness the Saint asked you to leave, she doesn't want to see you. Impossible, she won't not see me. Where is she, where is she? I want to see her. Li Tian was emotional and on the verge of losing control. Her Highness is busy, how can she have time to see you? What is she busy with? Is there anything more important than seeing me? The banquet is clearly over. Xiao Che curled his lips slightly, smiled coldly, and asked mysteriously, "Do you really want to know what Her Highness is busy with?" Li Tian growled, "Tell me quickly." "Her Highness is in the temple, serving Master Guanhai." Chapter 17, 3 Life Glass Body. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boom! Li Tian's vision went dark, his hair was dizzy, his eyes were dazzled, and he felt everything around him began to spin. He had a splitting headache, as if his head had been hit by a heavy hammer, as if it was about to split open. In just a moment, his eyes were bloodshot, and the spiritual power in his body surged uncontrollably, as if it was about to explode at any time. Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. You must be lying to me. How could Yulin sleep with Li Guanhai? You must be lying to me. Li Tian looked crazy, no longer as calm as before. These words seemed to be spoken to himself, but also to Xiao Che. He couldn't believe it and couldn't believe it. Yulin was by no means the kind of woman who would follow others' influence. She knew that she and Li Guanhai had a bloody feud, and she would definitely hate him deeply. How could she sleep with him? This must be Li Guanhai's conspiracy, yes. Xiao Che looked at his crazy appearance, his eyes full of contempt and sneer, and asked lightly, "Then why doesn't Her Majesty the Saint come to see you?" Hearing this, Li Tian felt as if he had been struck by lightning, and as if a basin of cold water had been poured over his head, freezing to the bone. He froze on the spot, his eyes dull, staring blankly in the direction of the main peak. At this moment, he was despairing, feeling that the world was collapsing and everything was leaving him. After a long time, Li Tian's aura gradually became violent, his sleeves and robes rustled, and a powerful storm of spiritual power surged out from around him. Xiao Che took a step back, curled his lips and sneered, then turned into a divine rainbow and escaped. Just as she was about to leave, the attic collapsed behind her with a loud bang. Li Tian finally lost control. He turned into a divine rainbow and rose from the ground, heading towards the main peak. He wanted to find out from Lu Yulin why he betrayed him. The commotion here naturally alarmed many disciples and elders. Several divine rainbows rushed into the sky and intercepted Li Tian like chasing the moon. "Where are these crazy people who dare to cause trouble in my Bingchan palace?" A strong voice exploded in the clouds, and 4 elders with white beards and white hair, with terrifying auras, surrounded Li Tian. "Get out of my way, anyone who stands in my way will die." Li Tian roared wildly, and Master Xian's cultivation burst out without reservation, and he actually wanted to break through the encirclement. I don't know what the cultivation level of a mere mysterious master is." The elder who just spoke snorted coldly, raised his sleeves, and rolled out a storm of spiritual power, tearing apart the space. Li Tian's momentum collapsed the moment he touched the spiritual storm. He spat out a mouthful of blood and rolled several somersaults uncontrollably in the void. He was already seriously injured. Although the son of luck is favored by God, in the face of absolute strength, he can only be beaten. Li Tian's eyes were about to burst, revealing 2 rows of teeth soaked with blood, and he roared, Why do everyone want to go against me? Why do you betray me?" He roared angrily. Golden light flourished between his brows, and an extremely powerful force that far exceeded the level of a Xian master suddenly erupted from his body, the mist covering the jade mountain of Bingchan Palace also circulated, like a large whirlpool, containing the power to destroy the world. The 4 elders frowned and looked at each other, and they all saw shock in each other's eyes. How could Li Tian's cultivation in the middle stage of the Xianxia master be so powerful? Could it be that he possesses some kind of killing treasure? The next moment, they chanted incantations at the same time, and the 4 avenue runes were condensed into golden threads that were connected to form a 4-method formation, covering the sky for dozens of miles in radius. Li Tian's concentrated powerful blow was sent out at the same time, hitting the golden barrier heavily. In an instant, golden light suddenly appeared, reflecting the heaven and earth. Mysterious golden runes swayed like snowflakes, and the sound of the great avenue rumbled from the 9 heavens. Li Tian's attack was indeed extremely powerful, but after all, his cultivation was shallow and he could not break through the joint defense of the 4 elders. It could even be said that it was far from enough, but this blow almost drained all the mana from Li Tian's body. "Oh, that's all." The magic circle covering the sky dispersed, and one of the elders sneered, suddenly disappeared from the place, and slapped Li Tian on the shoulder. Puff. Li Tian spat out a mouthful of blood, and the whole thing fell from the sky like a cannonball, destroying a palace and causing the entire mountain to tremble violently. The ground cracked, spreading cracks several feet wide, 4 divine rainbows fell to the ground, revealing the figures of the 4 elders, looking at Li Tian, who was lying in the pit with broken bones and tendons, covered in blood and dying. An elder sneered and said, "Oh, an idiot who overestimates his own capabilities dares to come to my Bingchan palace to die." At this time, disciples from various peaks came one after another. They heard the sound of fighting, but they didn't know what happened. When they arrived at the scene, they realized that someone had broken into Bingchan palace without permission and tried to stir up trouble. They had been suppressed by the 4 elders. Law enforcement disciple, lock this person's bones, ban his cultivation, put him in prison, and keep him under strict supervision. Yes, elder. 5 or 6 law enforcement disciples swarmed forward and used hook locks made of extreme northern cold jade to pass through Li Tian's pipa bone. Aha! Li Tian cried and howled in pain, his eyes wide open. His eyes were bloodshot, staring at the upside-down sky of stars, and his vision gradually became blurry. At the last moment when he lost consciousness, a beautiful silhouette of an unworldly girl appeared in his mind. I remembered the various scenes of meeting her for the first time and getting acquainted with her. How beautiful it was. Li Tian raised his lips and murmured, "Yulin." The next morning, in the main peak temple, Lu Yulin's jade face was flushed, standing quietly behind Li Guanhai, holding a jade comb in her hand, gently combing his dark hair. Thinking of what happened last night, she couldn't help but feel her ears and heart beating, and her pretty face was hot. Li Guanhai sat on the throne, his eyes slightly closed, as if he was enjoying Lu Yulin's service, but in fact, he was checking the system rewards. What happened last night was a great blow to Li Tian. And it robbed him of a lot of luck. When he woke up this morning, the system prompted that the task of clearing the Sun of Luck had been triggered. As long as he could complete the task within 3 days, he could get additional heavenly rewards. Heavenly rewards, this thing is not simple at first glance, and it should not be missed. It seems that my cousin really loves Lu Yulin deeply. I'm afraid he was heartbroken last night and was in great pain. Li Guanhai smiled coldly, opened his phoenix eyes, and saw Lu Yulin's slender figure in the bronze mirror. The reason why he allowed Lu Yulin to sleep with him last night was because of this woman's special physique. Her physique is called Sanqing Liuli body. This physique is very mysterious and special. If you practice with it, you can get unimaginable benefits. Not only will both sides progress rapidly in their cultivation, but their spirits can also be tempered, and their effects are comparable to those of divine flowers and immortal herbs. At the first sight of Lu Yulin, Li Guanhai saw that her physique was special and would be of great help to him, so he had already made up his mind to tie Lu Yulin to his side. To put it bluntly, he was simply deceiving the other party's feelings and taking advantage of the other party's feelings, but in this cruel world, such things are too normal. But then again, although Li Guanhai is cold-blooded and puts interests first, he does not intend to let her down or abandon her. Chapter 18, Cousin, you look much more haggard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Lu Yulin finished combing Li Guanhai's hair, she blushed and said, "Master Guanhai, I'm going to pay my respects to Master." After that, she ran out of the hall like she was escaping. Li Guanhai looked at her slender back as she fled, smiled lightly, and suddenly said, "How long are you going to hide?" As the space fluctuated, Li Ningxuang appeared in the hall. Her face was as cold as ice, and her light blue eyes stared at the man in black clothes on the throne, as if she had 1,000 words to say, but also as if she didn't want to say a word. Li Guanhai smiled and asked, "Are you jealous again?" "I dare not." Li Ningxuang's voice was light, and it was impossible to tell whether she was happy or angry. Li Guanhai stood up, walked close to her, and gently gathered her black hair scattered on her forehead behind her ears. His voice was gentle and soft, as if it could melt ice and snow. "She is a 3-life glass body, and practicing with her will be very beneficial." Hearing this, Li Ningxuang raised her head and stared at him, still without saying a word. "Although you are not a Sanqing Liuli body, in my heart, you are irreplaceable and unique." "Really?" Li Ningxuang stared at him closely, as if she could see through him. "Of course it's true." Li Guanhai stretched out a finger and scratched her upturned nose. Li Ningxuang smiled, and her face was really stunning. "By the way, how is Li Tian?" Li Guanhai asked casually. His tone was light and he didn't care. Li Ningshuang said, "Last night, he was beaten seriously by the elders of Bingchan Palace, his scapula was pierced, and he is locked in the dungeon." "Arrange it, I want to see this dear cousin." "Yes, master." In a cold and damp dungeon filled with death, in the cell, a dying and bloody young man was pierced with his scapula and hung on the rack. He was covered in blood and bloodstains, and there was no intact skin. It can be seen that he had been tortured before. This young man was Li Tian. This night was the longest and most painful night he had ever lived. The pain in his body was nothing, but the pain in his heart tortured him to the point of being neither a human nor a ghost, and his heart was ashen. In the dim and dark prison cell, a golden light was flickering. If someone was here, they would definitely see that it was Li Tian's eyebrows glowing, strands of mysterious divine light spread out, covering the surface of his body, drilling into the pores, and nourishing his body. The bloodstains on Li Tian's body and the injuries in his body were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. There were people in the dungeon before, and he didn't dare to expose himself. Now that everyone is gone, he naturally has to seize the time to recover from his injuries and find a way to get out. And Li Tian had thought it through in his mind. The first thing he did after leaving the dungeon was not to escape, but to find Lu Yulin to ask clearly, "You are my good friend, I am sincere to you, why did you betray me? You knew that Li Guanhai was my mortal enemy, why did you do this?" He was unwilling to give up. He had too many questions to ask, so he was eager to leave here. At the same time, Li Tian also felt stupid for his impulsive behavior last night. When he heard the news, he was furious and lost his reason, so he got hot-headed and put himself in danger. Just as Li Tian was thinking in his mind, footsteps were heard outside the dungeon. He was startled, and the golden light between his eyebrows suddenly disappeared, and the cell was completely dark. The figure in the narrow corridor swayed, and the footsteps were getting closer and closer. Li Tian's body subconsciously tensed a little, thinking that it was another law enforcement disciple of Bingchan Palace who encountered something unpleasant and tortured himself for fun. Thinking of this, a fierce light flashed in his eyes. These people deserve to die. Li Tian has memorized the appearance of those who tortured and insulted him. He secretly swore in his heart that if he did not grind these people to ashes, he would fall into reincarnation forever and never turn over. At this moment, a faint voice sounded in the cell, "Cousin, I haven't seen you for a long time. You look much more haggard." Hearing this voice that sounded in his dreams almost every night, Li Tian's pupils shrank suddenly and his body trembled involuntarily. The chains that bound his hands and feet made a clanging metal collision sound, which was particularly clear in this dead and dark dungeon. Under Li Tian's disheveled hair, a pair of blood-red eyes stared at the man in black clothes who was looming outside the cell. His eyes were full of deep hatred. He spoke word by word, and each word almost jumped out from his teeth. "Li Guanhai. My cousin seems to have a lot of resentment towards me. It's a pity that you can endure and lie dormant in the Yunwei Division for more than 10 years. This perseverance are really not simple." Li Guanhai said calmly. Li Tian snorted coldly, not intending to beat around the bush with him, and said angrily, "Stop being hypocritical, Li Guanhai, you deceived Yulin, you are despicable and shameless." "Yulin? Who is she?" Li Guanhai was confused, and then suddenly said, "Oh, you are talking about the saint of Bingchan Palace. Where do you get this from? What did I deceive her about?" "You." Li Tian was about to scold, but he couldn't say it when he got to his lips. "Yes, what did Li Guanhai deceive Yulin about?" Li Tian thought about it and accused from a different angle. "You forced Yulin to sleep with you. Such behavior is no different from that of an animal." That he had figured it out and was sure that Yulin was definitely not willing to sleep with Li Guanhai, but was forced. If he didn't do this, Li Guanhai would vent his anger on Bingchan Palace. Yulin had to make sacrifices to protect Bingchan Palace. She had no choice. Thinking of this, Li Tian felt even more distressed, and at the same time secretly blamed himself for being too weak and useless to save her from the sea of suffering. Li Guanhai raised his eyebrows and laughed in his heart. If Li Tian knew that Lu Yulin took the initiative to sleep with him last night, would he go crazy? Li Guanhai didn't say it out loud, nor did he respond to his accusation, but asked instead, "How did you suddenly become able to practice?" Hearing this, Li Tian's heart skipped a beat. This is his biggest secret and his only hope for turning over. He must not let anyone know. He forced himself to calm down and snorted coldly, "What does this have to do with you? Don't change the subject. I ask you, what is your intention in deceiving Yulin? Of course, I covet her beauty. You are shameless." Li Tian's eyes were about to crack, and his teeth were almost broken, but he soon calmed down. Li Guanhai is definitely not the kind of person who can be swayed by beauty. He just stimulated himself deliberately, so what is his purpose? Li Tian couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he tried. Li Guanhai said no more and turned to leave the dungeon. Li Tian breathed a sigh of relief. "Xuanhuang, has the demon root been planted?" Li Guanhai asked as soon as he walked out of the dungeon. Li Xuanhuang, who followed closely, replied respectfully, "It has been planted." "Very good, let him leave the dungeon in an hour." "Yes, master." Although Li Xuanhuang didn't know why the master did this, he understood that he had his own intentions, so he didn't ask more. In fact, Li Guanhai's calculation was very simple. After Li Tian was released from the dungeon, he would definitely not be willing to leave. He would definitely go to Lu Yulin to ask him clearly, and then give him a second heavy psychological blow to completely defeat him. Then he could harvest leaks with peace of mind, devour his pupil power, and squeeze out his last value. Chapter 19, Complete Rift, Demonic Cultivator. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Main Peak. Lu Yulin went to pay respects to his master, but was stopped by the guardian deacon guarding the door of the temple. The palace master is absorbing the Xuanhuang mother energy to make up for his innate shortcomings. No outsiders are allowed to disturb him. Lu Yulin was overjoyed and bowed deeply to the temple. Then he jumped back to the palace where he usually lived. When he arrived at the temple, he saw the huge incense bed made of red sandalwood and couldn't help but recall the shameful things last night. Just as her heart was trembling, her ears suddenly moved, and she turned her head to stare at the side of the palace. The strings of gemstone bead curtains were hanging down, and the sweet shyness on her jade face disappeared. She shouted coldly, "Who is it?" After a long silence, a voice sounded, "Yulin." The next moment, the bead curtain was opened, and a man with a dirty face, disheveled hair, and blood all over his body walked out. Lu Yulin frowned slightly, feeling that his voice was somewhat familiar. After taking a closer look, she exclaimed, "Li Tian," that she never expected that Li Tian would appear in her palace in this way and in this image. "Why are you here? What happened to you? Why are you so injured?" Li Tian did not answer her question, but asked, "Yulin, why did you do this to me?" "Why?" Lu Yulin was confused and asked, "Why do you do this to you? Where did you get this from?" "I didn't do anything. You knew that Li Guanhai and I had an irreconcilable feud. Why did you still approach him? Why did you betray me?" Li Tian's voice was hoarse and low, and his tone was aggressive, almost questioning. Lu Yulin suddenly realized that he came here for this matter. "Li Tian, it's true that you and I are friends, but that's all. Why should I offend someone I can't afford to offend because of you? Master Guanhai donated his Xuanhuang mother Qi to save his master. He is a great benefactor of my Bingchan palace. Enough." Li Tian interrupted her angrily, "Yulin, I know that it must be your vain master who forced you to get close to him in order to please Li Guanhai. You were forced to do it, right? You must be suffering and in pain. Don't be afraid. I will take you away and take you away from this fire pit." As he said, Li Tian was about to pull Lu Yulin. In his opinion, Lu Yulin was making sacrifices for Bingchan Palace. This is a cage and a purgatory. He must take her away. He didn't care about the blood feud. He just wanted to be with the beauty and live a carefree life from now on. Lu Yulin tapped the ground with her slender feet, her colorful dress fluttered, and she retreated, avoiding Li Tian's bloody palm. She said angrily, "Li Tian, you are too self-indulgent. No one forced me. I did all this voluntarily." "Impossible," Li Tian shouted, "Yulin, don't deceive yourself anymore. Li Guanhai is cold-blooded and mean. He will not give his heart to anyone. Don't be stupid anymore." Lu Yulin said firmly, "Even so, I will follow him." "Why?" "Because I am already his." When these words came out, Li Tian was stunned, as if a bolt from the blue fell, his head was buzzing, and he couldn't believe his ears, let alone what he heard. Even if he had expected it, he still couldn't accept it when it really happened. Lu Yulin continued, Li Tian, you and I are just casual acquaintances. I just treat you as an ordinary friend, nothing more. Li Tian was in pain. He held his head with both hands, and saliva dripped from his teeth onto the floor made of divine stone. Then Lu Yulin's next sentence was like the last straw that broke the camel's back, completely defeating his rationality. I hope you won't bother me again in the future. I don't want Master Guanhai to misunderstand me. No, Li Tian screamed in pain, and wisps of black air emanated from his pores. His eyes were red, his face was hideous, and his whole body was shrouded in an extremely strange black air. Lu Yulin's pupils shrank suddenly, and he took several steps back, saying in horror, demonic energy. You are a demon cultivator. Demon cultivators refer to cultivators whose minds are corroded by demonic energy, or cultivators who need to devour the essence, blood, and flesh of others to increase their cultivation. Compared with the two, the former is more disgusting. The horror of the demon clan has long been recorded in ancient books. In the final holy war, although the demons were destroyed, many things tainted with demonic energy were left in the world. Once ordinary cultivators come into contact with them, their minds will be immediately corroded. What's more terrifying is that the remnants of the demons can even use the demonic energy to be reborn in the bodies of cultivators, and finally take over their bodies. Therefore, the righteous cultivators in the upper realm, even the evil cultivators, have zero tolerance for demon cultivators. Once they are discovered, they will do their best to eliminate them. Lu Yulin never thought that Li Tian would be a demon cultivator. When he thought of exploring the secret realm with him, Lu Yulin felt cold all over. He had walked through the gates of hell, but he didn't know it. He was really blessed. I'll kill you. Li Tian's reason was completely filled with monstrous demonic thoughts. Now he had only one thought in his mind, kill everything, kill everyone in front of him. Before he finished speaking, he kicked his legs and pounced on the beautiful girl not far away like a wolf pouncing on its food. He was extremely fast, like a cannonball, and arrived in the blink of an eye. Lu Yulin did not dare to be careless. A huge amount of mana surged, forming a barrier with runes in front of him. The defensive barrier was barely formed when Li Tian rushed up. With a snap, the mana barrier broke. Li Tian continued to charge, and his dirty hands pinched Lu Yulin's velvety neck. Clang! A flash of cold light, a fleeting shadow, a cold and sinister long sword held Li Tian's hands. Sharp sword energy shot out, and snow lotus blossomed, beautiful and dangerous. Ha! Li Tian shouted, and black air spit out, shattering the sword energy. Lu Yulin was hit and took 3 steps back, horrified. Li Tian was only at the Xianxia realm, and he was already at the early stage of Xuanhuan, but he could not get any advantage from him, and even fell behind. Is this the terrifying thing about demon cultivators? The mana is endless and the power is endless. You are mine, mine alone. Since I can't have you, I can't let anyone else have you. I'm going to kill you. Li Tian looked like a madman, and his words made people's hair stand on end. If you can't have it, then destroy it. It can be seen that his heart is completely twisted. He was about to take action, but saw Lu Yulin smiled, and smiled very relaxedly. At the same time, a familiar voice suddenly sounded behind him. Where did the demon cultivator come from? How dare you sneak into the saint's palace and try to do something wrong? Li Tian shuddered and looked back. In front of the palace gate, Li Guanhai stood in a black robe, with a fairy-like appearance, and outside the palace gate, there were many elders and deacons who came after hearing the news, at least a dozen or 20 people. They all had cold eyes and unfriendly eyes. Chapter 20, The Southern Sky Pillar, a Model of Righteousness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Guanhai. Li Tian almost squeezed out these 3 words from his teeth. Li Guanhai raised his eyebrows. He thought that his cousin's hatred for him was really unforgettable. Even after the demonic energy eroded his heart, he did not forget the hatred in his heart. But it was no wonder, for Li Tian, he and him not only had the hatred of killing his father and mother and exterminating the clan, but also the hatred of stealing his love. The new and old hatreds added together, it can be said that the hatred is as deep as the sea. which can be seen by the sun and the moon. Li Guanhai seemed to have just recognized him and said in surprise, "Cousin? Why are you here?" As soon as these words came out, the elders of Bingchan Palace guarding outside the palace were shocked. Is he the cousin of Master Guanhai? Could it be Li Tian who was born with a useless meridian and could not practice? It must be. It is rumored that he suddenly showed an outstanding cultivation some time ago and defeated several Tianjiao of Yunwei Division. It turned out that he used the power of the magic way. They talked in a low voice, but they knew how to measure. There was no mention of how to deal with Li Tian. After all, he is the cousin of Master Guanhai. If he is angered, it will be terrible, so the elders planned to wait and see and let the two cousins make their own decisions. At this time, Lu Yulin reminded Master Guanhai, he is a demon cultivator. His reason has been occupied by the demon nature. In fact, she didn't need to remind him of this. Everyone present was a discerning person. Who couldn't see it? But the intention of Lu Yulin's words was actually to tell Li Guanhai, although Li Tian is your cousin, he is also a demon cultivator. Don't let personal interests override public interests. I will kill you. Li Tian suddenly roared wildly and turned into a ball of black gas and disappeared. The next moment, he appeared above Lu Yulin's head like a ghost, and the monstrous demonic energy gathered in his palm, and he slapped it down with the momentum of overturning mountains and seas. This palm was so powerful that Lu Yulin could never resist it. The elders outside the hall were horrified and wanted to help, but it was too late, seeing that the huge and fierce demonic energy was about to fall on Lu Yulin's slender and thin body. At this moment, the space between Lu Yulin and the demonic energy suddenly twisted, an indescribable force of law swept out, the demonic energy pressed down and disappeared without a trace in an instant, as if it had never existed. Lu Yulin stared blankly at the young man standing in front of him, dressed in black, like a god, with confusion in his eyes. In the critical moment, he protected himself without hesitation and endured the danger. Alone, Lu Yulin's heart seemed to fall into a deep lake, unable to push away or hide. Cousin, although you and I are cousins, you have gone astray and fallen into the path of demons. Although I can't bear it, for the sake of the people of the world and the peace of the upper world, I can only kill my relatives for the sake of justice. Li Guanhai spoke, his voice cold and regretful. His words were full of emotion and sincerity, making people feel that the relationship between him and Li Tian was very deep. I thought Li Guanhai made this decision by suppressing his grief. All the elders of Bingchan Palace admired him. Young Master Guanhai understood the righteousness of the cause and would never sacrifice the public interest for personal gain in the face of major issues. With such a broad mind and bearing, he could be called a pillar of the south sky and a model of righteousness. At this time, Li Tian was completely controlled by the devil. His blood-red eyes stared at Li Guanhai, and his eyeballs almost popped out of his sockets. He screamed strangely, and his whole body was filled with an unprecedented power. His skin was covered with a layer of strange black light, and his torn robes rustled, and his power was extremely great. The devil filled the palace and condensed into thousands of brilliant devil swords above. The sword pointed at Li Guanhai from a distance, locking him. Kill! With Li Tian's roar, the magic sword fell like a gust of wind and rain, seemingly able to cut through the void and shatter the sun, moon and stars. I'm sorry, cousin. As Li Guanhai's understated voice sounded, a dragon roar shook the sky. A golden dragon shadow emerged, with runes intertwined on it and densely covered with light golden scales. The terrifying momentum seemed to be able to crush the universe. The golden dragon shook out, and wherever it passed, the void collapsed, and the divine stone jade pillars broke into pieces and turned into powder. Puff! The magic swords in the sky shattered, and Li Tian had no power to resist. He flew backwards, broke through the roof of the hall, and disappeared in the air with the golden dragon's shadow. The hall was silent for a while, and then a series of swallowing sounds were heard. The faces of the elders were different, and there was a little more awe in their eyes when they looked at Li Guanhai. With just one palm, a demon cultivator was beaten to death. The gap between the two was too big. Moreover, the might of that palm strike just now has surpassed the Xuanhuan realm, but Li Guanhai is clearly in the late Xuanhuan realm. How did he do it? The only explanation is that he has a solid foundation and has been strengthening himself for 10 years, so he can exert a power far beyond his own realm. is this the prodigy standing at the top of the upper realm? At the age of 20, he has broken through to the late Xuanhuan realm and can even exert a terrifying combat power that exceeds Xuanhuan. Such a talent is really shocking. It can only be said that he is worthy of being the young master of the Yunwei Division. At this time, the magnificent power around Li Guanhai was completely restrained. He looked at the palace ceiling with a big hole in it and sighed. In the eyes of others, he did something he didn't want to do, but had to do. At this moment, another palace suddenly burst into a rosy glow, and the sound of Tao spread over 3,000 miles, vast and solemn. The elders showed joy and were extremely excited. It's the palace master succeeded. Ha ha ha, that's great, my Bingchan palace won't be destroyed. God bless my Bingchan palace. They took their leave and turned into divine rainbows that soared into the sky. Rushing to congratulate, Lu Yulin ran out of the hall, looking at the palace emitting divine light, couldn't help but redden her eyes, and cried with joy. She looked back at Li Guanhai, her voice choked. Thank you. This thank you is not for his life-saving grace just now, but for his grace of saving his master. Li Guanhai smiled and shook his head. Go to your master. Yeah. Lu Yulin wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes and turned into a stream of light and swept away. Li Guanhai was the only one left in the huge palace. The jade-like smile on his face disappeared, and he said in a flat voice, throw it out. The next moment, the space fluctuated. A person covered in blood fell out of the void, lying on the ground like a dead dog, already dying, with his life hanging by a thread. Then Li Ningxuang also showed up and stood respectfully behind Li Guanhai. The person lying on the ground was Li Tian. Li Guanhai had just used a palm technique to knock him out of the palace, but in fact, it was to blind everyone's sight and let Li Ningxuang secretly put Li Tian into the Qianquan bag. He couldn't die like this, otherwise it would be a pity. Li Guanhai walked to Li Tian's side, looking down at him with cold and indifferent eyes. You are not wrong, but you are blessed by God and are destined to stand on the opposite side of me. Thinking of this, his black and white pupils gradually turned red. The vast red light spread, like two red whirlpools, exuding a terrifying and strange feeling. The two divine lights were drawn out of Li Tian's pupils and sucked into the red whirlpool.